What's going on? This is To Be Continued With, and today we're checking out the third episode of The Mandalorian's third season. I'm your host, Mike, and today's breakdown title track is Mind Spray, another great vibe that's set by Catt the Legend. Now, if you are checking us out for the first time, feel free to get comfortable and enjoy. And if you like what we're doing here, please make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you know when the newest video drops. But more importantly, if you know how things go here, then you know that it's time to cue up that intro and get things started. Drop! At the end of the previous episode, we saw that Din Djarin went into the living waters and was pulled under by the mythic Mythosaur. He was knocked out completely while underwater, only to be saved by Bo-Katan. Now, the show ended with her seeing the Mythosaur when she was making her way up from the depths with Din in her arms. This show opens with Din, once again, becoming a true Mandalorian after his dip in the waters. And Bo-Katan ends up asking him if he saw anything while being under. He states that he saw nothing, and Bo-Katan doesn't tell him that she saw the Mythosaur beast living within the waters. It's kind of shady, but from there, the two of them actually get back to her ship, which suddenly gets attacked the instant they hit the outer atmosphere. A squadron of TIE interceptors are on their ass, and it's a full Star Wars fight scene in the sky, or should I say space. Anyway, Bo-Katan starts off by outflying them and dodging them as they head towards Din's ship. Din starts returning fire at the interceptors, and since his ship is near, Bo-Katan can't really slow down because this squad is itching to shoot them out of the sky. She ends up pulling some maneuvers that allows Din to actually jump out of her ship and use his jetpack to land near his Naboo fighter. But the interceptors actually stay on Bo-Katan and her ship. Now, at least it's two fighters against a squadron of 6. And right out of the gate, Din pulls a sweet Batman 1989 maneuver and takes out one of the fighters right out of the gate. Bo-Katan then takes two other fighters through a canyon and takes them out, while Din's music plays and he comes into frame shooting down another interceptor. Now they have two enemies still in the game, and our Mandalorians take them out with style and relative ease. It's a great sequence that really highlights the type of action that Star Wars fans want to see, like myself, specifically and especially from this show. Now, they end up complimenting each other, but stop short because they notice that Bo-Katan's castle is actually being destroyed by TIE bombers, and then they get attacked by even more TIE interceptors. Now, I mean a shitload of TIE interceptors come after them, and their only option is to get the hell out of there, and they basically do, because Din shares a jump destination, and they end up bouncing out of there. It's at this point that we actually end up re-meeting Dr. Pershing, who is giving a speech on cloning on the planet Coruscant. Now, when I say re-meeting, it's because he's a character from the first season who was a big part of Grogu's backstory. Anyway, we get a glimpse into his life now on Coruscant, and it seems like he's in some group that's made up of ex-Imperials that are assimilating to the ways of the New Republic. To them and everyone else, he's known as L-52, and he's pretty mild-mannered and a bit geeky. But he ends up meeting G68, who's a female in the group, and she was actually part of Moff Gideon's crew. They kind of connect and start getting to know each other a bit more. We end up seeing them sucking on some radioactive ice cream corn dog hybrid treat as they walk through the streets and are amazed by the lifestyle that people are living on the planet Coruscant. Now, they end up getting into a deep conversation about his cloning studies, and he's then distracted by a giant stone monument in the middle of the town square during their late night. When he gets home, he asks his POD, which I call his parole officer droid, if he is able and allowed to continue his cloning research and experiments. Now, his POD lets him know what he can and cannot do, and he specifically states, no cloning bullshit. Now, G68 does give off some vibes, and she really eggs him on to continue his work, but she is basically daring him to go up against what's expected of him. After another moment with his POD, Dr. Pershing kind of snaps and he hits up G68 because he's looking to take her up on her offer to help him get back to what he knows and loves to do. Now, it's at this point that we see Dr. Pershing and G68 sneak onto a train transport and they are headed towards a disposal yard. Their plan is to get their hands on a mobile lab from an old Imperial ship before it gets scrapped down and disposed of. Now, while on this train, we end up seeing the old trope of the train conductor asking and checking for tickets. So what do our pair have to do? They have to get up and make their move onto another car. They keep doing this until they reach the end of the train transport, and their final option to avoid getting caught is to simply jump off the moving train. They do, and they continue on their way, and during this little walk and excursion, G68 reveals that her name is Ella Kane. They end up reaching where they want to be, and he starts grabbing whatever he needs out of the med lab room. Now, they start making their way out of there when they realize that they're not alone. They end up running and end up getting captured by authorities, and we see that this was all a setup by G68. The next scene is Dr. Pershing captured, strapped down to a medical table, and he's about to get his mind messed with. You see, Dr. Pershing knows they're going to use what's called a mind flare, which basically wipes your mind clean. What's funny about this is that the being that is about to lobotomize him is the same alien race as Admiral Akbar, and Dr. Pershing actually looks at him and yells, "This is a trap." Basically, he's trying to explain that he was set up. And while this is going on, we actually see that G68 is talking to a New Republic officer who allows her to stay and watch the process. The problem is that once this officer leaves the room, she cranks up the machine to fry Pershing's mind. From there, we return to our regularly scheduled program and see that Din and Bo-Katan have returned to seek the armor. The other Mandalorians give Din a hard time, especially the one that's voiced by Jon Favreau. Now, I'm impressed, since the man does it all, folks. I mean, he's a writer, producer, heavy artillery Mandalorian. What can this guy not do? Anyway, Din and Bo-Katan get the stink eye as they are brought to speak with the armor. Now, Din provides proof of his purification achievement and is completely redeemed. And so is Bo-Katan, since she was also redeemed in their eyes due to her actions when helping Din out. And in a cool twist, both her and us find out that she's invited into their ranks. This is the way. And this is also the end of the installment of The Mandalorian 3rd season. Now, was it fun? Yes and no. What I mean by that is that since we are revisiting Dr. Pershing and his involvement with Grogu along with his cloning experiments for the Empire, we can tell it's setting something up for this season. And even with a blatant episode like this one, it managed to be sandwiched in between the really fun stuff and still captivate the viewers. The laughable train jump scene looked like shit, but things like the TIE Interceptor fight more than made up for it. Now, I could see many being turned off by the route this episode took, but I honestly didn't mind the direction. The ending was done well and added a twist to Bo-Katan's character, because even though she had her helmet on, I kind of get the feeling that she was smiling from ear to ear. Now, I'm interested to see where they go with Dr. Pershing, and the building story of Din definitely has my attention. Now, if you enjoyed this entry of The Mandalorian, let us know in the comments, as well as what you thought of our breakdown of Chapter 19, The Convert. Also, let me just say thank you to our returning viewers, and if this is your first time checking this out, like I mentioned at the top of the video, I hope you had fun, because if you did, I'm going to ask you for a huge favor. Please subscribe, hit that bell for alerts to the channel, and if you want to go that extra mile, then like and share this episode of To Be Continued With. Please know that I really appreciate it, and I thank you all for your support. And also, I have to thank Bobcat the Legend for the perfect track that he provided today. You can check out the title track, Mind Spray, and so much more of his stuff by clicking on the links which are in the description below. Now, I can see why this chapter was called The Convert, since it was all about different sides of the same coins being converted either by force or by pure chance. Now, since this week's episode of The Mandalorian is all said and done, catch us next week, because on this channel, you know it, it's simply to be continued.